All righty. Everyone who is in here, thank you for joining me on this early morning. Good morning, Sunday morning. This will not be a very long show, but I'm awake enough to where I can do it now. So that way, if anybody wakes up in the morning, they decide they want to watch it, they'll immediately have it. And I'm going to try to do the weekly show tomorrow. So I want to get this out of the way. I've been doing written landfall hours and damage reports all week. So I wanted to do videos now because I won't be able to do it for the game against Vancouver next, in a couple of days. So I want to get one in now while I can. Plus, I got a couple of other little projects I'm working on. One of them I'm trying to have out within about a week. So let me go ahead and get the slides up here. It's not letting me show them. No, that's not what I want. There we go. All righty. We'll get to the comments here real quick, and then we'll go ahead and get started on this. And let me pull up my notes. Turn off that timer. Yes, I know, phone. The warning take is live. I'm fully aware. Okay. BTS says, I can make this one. I'm glad you're here, pal. I'm really glad you're here. Coconut Kyle, Kane's after dark. Or after dark. Yeah, you're absolutely right about that. Max, I don't know how to say the rest of that, but good to see you, buddy. Coconut Kyle, thanks for the coverage. Yes, you're quite welcome. So this one doesn't have all the stuff on it that I wanted to put on here, but it's enough to kind of get the point across and everything to talk about it and everything like that. So I'm going to go through my notes and then I'll reference some of the stuff on here and go from there. So one of the things I talked about in Landfall Hour, I was talking about how this game was going to have some pace to it because both of these teams are pretty fast. You probably noticed that tonight, but you didn't notice immediately. One of the first things I noted was that every even game after the first 2 minutes, there wasn't a whole bunch of action. It seemed like the two teams were kind of feeling each other out and not immediately going to that speed game, that quick transition game. And even when they were doing sustained offensive zone time, they were doing it more so through skating than cycling the puck. And that only progressed to be more and more the case as the game went on. Drury Line generated a good chance early. Sean Walker looked really good tonight. I'm surprised that he hasn't recorded a goal yet. I think it's coming. I really do, because I thought he was excellent tonight, more so quietly, but he had the intangibles. He defended well tonight. He generated a couple of really good shots on net. Gossesbear had an early shot, and then eventually we get to the first power play of the evening, which is Brandon Montour roughing against Jordan Martinook. Brandon Montour did what he did best, and he bitched about it all the way to the penalty box. Dude was a perfect fit in Florida. He should have fucking stayed there. So at first power play, it was looking all right. There's at one point where Seattle attempts to exit the zone. Gossesbear prevents a transition play. He makes a really, really good pass to Seth Jarvis. He executes a good zone entry, drops it off for Martin Necas. Andrei Svechnikov gets into a good position in front of the net. Martin Necas feeds a really good pass to him, and he shoots and he scores. Good wrist shot, good snipe. Exactly what you needed to start a game off like that is you get on your first power play and you make it count, and that's exactly what the Hurricanes did there. So that was a good start. So shortly after that, Shane Wright took a high-sticking penalty against Dmitry Orlov that resulted in the Hurricanes' second power play. And the funny thing about that is the first unit looked pretty good, even though it didn't score. The thing I noticed about the second unit, even though they did start to clean it up a little bit as the game progressed and as the second power play unit had more time on ice, the second power play unit, it did a lot of cycling. It was just one pass too many, two pass too many, and it just kept going and everything like that. And they didn't generate as many shots as they could have, because there were a lot of times where they had open lanes to the net and they were still making passes. They were playing hot potato with it just a little bit too much. They cleaned that up a little bit as the game went on, but the first time Power Play 2 was out there, they were passing it way too much. They were trying to cycle way too much, trying to get the penalty killers to open up way too much. So around the 7-minute mark of the first period, Carolina started to take control, and we started seeing them spend a lot more time in the offensive zone. They had these pretty dominant shifts, and then as time went on, they became not only dominant shifts, but they became coordinated. They were having an easier time connecting passes and generating high danger chances from there. So 5 minutes remaining in the period, the Kraken pressed with an intense ozone pressure. Aho took a cross-checking penalty that he absolutely had to take against Matty Bernier. Otherwise, he might have scored. So there's not many times you can say someone had to take a penalty, but that was one of those times where Aho really did have to take that penalty. This is where I noticed that the Seattle power play looked particularly dangerous. They were moving the puck quickly and they could move it on their terms. So, one, they were getting clean entries. They didn't have to dump it in. Two, they were getting entries with speed. They didn't have to hold up the line and enter the zone with numbers, whether it was one guy going in, two guys going in, three guys going in. Very well coordinated entries on the power play. And then once they did get in there, they didn't really take a whole lot of time to set up. They didn't need it. And they were circling the wagons and passing the puck, doing drop passes, seam passes, you name it, and they were connecting all of them. Carolina did a really, really good job suppressing shots enough and taking away enough passing lanes to make sure that that power play did not become dangerous. But one of the things I noted here immediately was that the power play will be a problem for the rest of the night if Carolina takes too many penalties. So last 3 minutes of the period was when 5-on-5, the game started hitting the pace I was expecting it to be at, where there was a lot of north-south play and transition plays became really, really important. You started seeing them spend less time in the neutral zone because they were transitioning so quickly, more time in the offensive zone, more time in the defensive zone, trying to make something out of the sustained pressure that they could have, but neither team was staying there long before it seemed like it was going back the other way. So pucks were getting through the neutral zone really fast, going in both directions. Pucks were coming out of both offensive zones and defensive zones for both teams pretty quick. There was a lot of north-south in this game, like I expected. So it was good that Carolina stepped up to the challenge because normally, like I've said before, Carolina normally has the speed advantage against just about anybody. And normally, not only do they have a speed advantage, they have a definitive speed advantage. That was not the case tonight. They had to work for a lot of stuff, and we'll get to that. And speaking of, here's the notes that I put out in the first intermission report. It's basically the same stuff that I'd already said. One of the other things was that they need to be better in the dot because you can see the face-off percentages here. Carolina, I'm not one of those people that thinks that face-offs are the end-all be-all. Out of all the stats, it's one of the least important ones if you ask me, because just because you want to face-off doesn't mean that you're not – just because you want to face-off does not mean that your team will maintain possession of the puck 1-2 sticks from now. So that's why I'm just kind of like, well, it's an important thing. But if it's not much different if it's 49% or 51%. However, 38.1, that's too low. They got to get that. They got to get those numbers up. So Gostisbehere on ice goal for him. What I mean by that is he helped generate the entry that led to the only goal of that period that Andrei Svechnikov scored. Aho, I thought, played really, really well tonight. I was expecting him to at least record a point at this point. So we go on to the second period here. Jackson Blake made an incredibly cerebral play with that goal. We'll get to that in a little bit. I'm going to go through the notes here first. So for the second period to start out, the stall line set the tone. They had a really good first shift. The pace carried over from the end of the first period, and they matched the occasion on that. Svechnikov gets a slashing call. PK better at slowing and denying entries this time. So when he took that slashing call against Jaden Schwartz, I didn't have a problem with the officiating tonight. I felt like they called it pretty evenly, honestly. Like what was a slash at one end was a slash at the other. But the penalty kill looked a lot better this time. On the first one, it was not nearly as bad as the first one against Edmonton. This time it looked a lot better in terms of, okay, let's try and deny entry. If we can't deny entry, let's force them to the outside. Keep them on the perimeter. Don't let them have the middle of the ice. Don't let Matty Bernier work into the interior. Don't let Jordan Epperly set up in front of the net. Don't let Jared McCann have all kinds of time and space, for example. They did those things. They were really good at gapping up on, whoever they had at the point, whether it was Montour or whoever. They did a really good job on those things right there. So the penalty kill was significantly better in the second period. Slavin made a defensive play during that penalty kill at the 14:37 mark that was just absolutely beautiful, and that's why Tripp was referring to him as the guru of breaking up 2-on-1s. That wasn't just a 2-on-1 that Jacob Slavin broke up. There were two options in front of the net, and Jacob Slavin took both of them away because he left his feet at the right time. Now, granted, this is something we as Canes fans are used to. I don't think that there's a defensive defenseman, I hate that term, but a shutdown defenseman, as I like to call him, that is more underappreciated or more appreciated by a fan base than Jacob Slavin is by us. He's not respected by the experts because he doesn't put up 100 points a season like, Erik Karlsson has in the past or anything like that. But I doubt that there's a defensive defenseman such as Adam Pellick or Essa Lindell or anybody like that who has as many people within their own fan bases appreciate them as Jacob Slavin does, because every time I go to the arena, I see a ton of Slavin sweaters, and I've got one myself. But that was a pretty critical play at that point to slow the momentum of that particular power play, even though the Canes as a collective unit were penalty killing significantly better. As that power play expired, the Hurricanes had a good follow-on shift, and they became more dominant around the 14-minute mark. They were spending a lot more time in the offensive zone, and that was where they had that really dominant shift where Jamie Oleksiak had to leave the ice. Luckily, he was okay. He came back out. For a little bit, the Kraken were down to 5 defensemen, and they held up for a little while. There was a sequence at 12 minutes, and I'm just kind of like, how the hell did we not score on that? You probably know exactly which one I'm talking about, but the sad thing is I can probably say that about 2 or 3 different things tonight. Kotkaniemi was trying his best to score tonight. He was going to the front of the net a lot, and he was doing it at the right times. I thought he was solid tonight, even though he didn't record a point, but he's not going to record a point every night. It's just not who he is. I mean, I don't think anybody on this team is capable of recording a point every single night, but especially with the system, the way that it's played. So power play, 10:47, Yanni Gourde gets a slashing penalty against Andrei Svechnikov. Power play 2 looked a lot better in this particular case. Burns generated a couple of decent shots from the point, and during that sequence, Freddie Anderson made a timely save after Gostisbehere kind of coughed up the puck at the blue line during the power play, and the Kraken had a shorthanded chance, but luckily Anderson shut that down. I didn't get the chance to write down who it was because I was trying to keep up with all the notes of this game. It was really fast. Shortly after that, Jack Roslovic hit the post, and that would have made the game like 2-1 already at that point. Chatfield made a great defensive play, created a really quick breakaway for Andrei Svechnikov. He couldn't score. Even though Svechnikov could have had 3 or 4 goals tonight, that being said, I still thought he played really well. He's playing like a power forward. He's playing to his strengths. What I really want to talk about here is this goal that Jack Drury scored courtesy of Jackson Blake. Brent Burns did a good job getting the puck up ice really quickly and finding his intended target, and that was Jackson Blake. One of the things that, if you watch Jackson Blake play while he was in college, one of the things that he was really good at was working in close, working in tight, working with not a whole lot of open ice. And one of the reasons that he's good at that, well, I'll state 2 reasons. One, he's got really good vision. He sees the ice really well. The second thing being is his ability to skate. He's really good at accelerating and decelerating, changing his speed really quick. So he'll be in a full forward stride. He'll slow down to a short, choppy step, but then he'll go shoulder width with the feet, kind of use them like air brakes, if you will. And that's what he did on that play with Jack Drury. He changed his speed at just the right time, and he fed the puck at just the right time, all because he did what he had to do with his feet. So when he held up at the right time, Jack Drury was in a perfect position. He had nobody on him. He had plenty of open net to look at. Jackson Blake fed an absolutely perfect pass, and he was in position to do that because he skates well and he has good vision. So shortly after that, Yanni Gourde goes back in the box at 17:04. Seth Jarvis draws a double minor from Yanni Gourde high stick, and Trip Tracy pointed it out on the broadcast. Bob Gorman did a really good job making sure that they got Jarvis stitched up real quick. They didn't stitch him up. They put the clotting glue on his face. I forget what it's actually called. We had it in the military too. So that way he could go back out there, because if you're actively bleeding, you can't be on the ice, and Jarvis was out there for that. So they had a pretty smart utilization of the power play during the double minor. I wish they'd gotten at least 1 goal out of it. That would have made that game a lot less interesting at that point. The one thing, what they were really smart about with it was they made sure power play 2 ate up a decent amount of time in the middle part of that double minor. So when the first half of that penalty was, or the first half of the double minor penalty was expiring, PP2 stayed on for a little bit, and then power play 1 went out there to finish it up, and then they would have fresh ice and an abbreviated power play to start the third period. And I thought that was a good idea, even though they ended up not scoring on it. Gostisbehere did look a little rough defensively tonight, but I don't think that there was a single time that his shots didn't get through, and they were almost always on net. So I'm really curious to see what his shooting percentage and his shots through percentage is right now. It's got to be good, because I don't think that there's been hardly a shot blocked against him. So that's one thing that we were lacking before with the defense is shots were getting blocked too easy on the power play, and Gostisbehere has helped that out a lot. So third period, power play expires. Jarvis makes an excellent back check to help out Gostisbehere when Yanni Gourde was coming out of the box. And follow-on shifts, really important. This is where I wrote Robinson, very noticeable. I was really, really happy with Eric Robinson tonight. So to go back to the second period for a moment, because I forgot to forward to this, the Canes were the better team for the most part. This pace picked up. They picked up with it. The Kraken gained momentum from that power play, or from Carolina not converting on that power play. They improved slightly in the faceoff circle. Carolina did. Jackson Blake, if you go back and watch his NCAA highlights, that play that he made tonight to score that, to get Jack Drury the puck to score that goal, it's like second nature to him. I remember watching his highlights and I go, this kid is really, really good at creating time and space by changing how fast he's going, and he can do it on a dime. And I'm not trying to make a one-for-one comparison when I say this, but someone like Matt Barzal, you think of someone like that who does those short, choppy steps and can change the momentum of it, changes speed and changes momentum at will. And that's kind of what Jackson Blake did there. That's a very impressive and very underrated play. So we're on to the third period here. Let me pull my notes back up. All right, so 13:32 remaining. This is where I noticed the Kraken were starting to fly the zone and break out really, really fast and with numbers, and they were getting pretty risky about it. So Jesperi Kotkaniemi took a slashing call against Shane Wright, and during that particular sequence, Joey Decord made a pretty ballsy play to try and get it up ice very quickly. But the Canes did a really good job of getting it back out. Orlov made that play. And then on the very next entry, they did a good job disrupting it again. Burns got it right back out. Nothing really came of that particular power play. And that was the last power play that the Kraken would have that night. So the only goal that they scored, Slavin took a shot, got blocked. It resulted in a Jared McCann breakaway, who is their leading scorer right now, I believe. I think he has 9 points, now 10. And Jacob Slavin got back, managed to get a stick in there a little bit, but it wasn't enough. And Jared McCann's a pretty talented player. And like I said, don't give him time and space. He will make something happen. So Seattle started to get back into the game here a little bit, but shortly after that, one of the subtle things that I think changed the momentum, Eric Robinson made a critical defensive play while they were under siege in their zone. And he pushed the puck out from whoever was quarterbacking at that point on the blue line, and that kind of killed the Kraken's momentum in that particular sequence. 720, or actually, nope, here we go. All right, so 11:37, Andrei Burakovsky takes a hooking call against Andrei Svechnikov. That's another way that, Svechnikov had a good night, is that he drew penalties almost as often as he took them, or as often as he took them. That's not a normal thing with him, but tonight. So, and then 7:27, I wrote power play looks bad. Aho might need to switch back to the other side. That's something I'll elaborate on further, but I think Aho looked like he was more comfortable on the left side of the power play as opposed to the right. He was scoring a lot from there. He was getting assists. He was putting shots on net. Primarily, he was putting the puck in the net himself, and when he wasn't, he was generating really good rebounds from the other side of the ice. I think that maybe that needs to be revisited. And then in regards to this goal right here, Seth Jarvis, I just wrote in my notes, bruh, because that was a nasty move. That was insane. Like, I cannot remotely describe that with words. So we're down to the last couple of minutes of the game. Kraken pull Joey Decord out. Jordan Staal lays this hit on Jordan Eberle, and this results in Dmitry Orlov having possession of the puck. He flips it all the way to the other end of the ice, goes in the empty net, and that will be that. And the Hurricanes win 4-1. Final stats, 39 shots on goal for the Hurricanes, 19 for the Kraken. Face-off percentage improved drastically from where it was in the first period, 47.5 to 52.5. Power play, the Hurricanes were 16.7%, 1 for 6. To put it nicely, that is unacceptable with how good the power play has been lately. And ultimately, they did get the all-important first goal with the first power play. But there's very rarely, if ever, the Hurricanes will get 6 power plays in a single game at any point. They should have made more on that. They really should. They should have made some hay. They should have at least went 2 for 6, especially with a double minor. So that's the one thing. Like, if I have to be kind of nitpicky, other than the normal stuff that, lots of high danger chances and not enough goals, which happened a little bit tonight, but not as much as, it has at other games. The power play should have been at least 2 for 6. That's the only nitpick I really have. I was really happy with everything else. I thought Freddie Anderson did really good tonight. He made timely saves. Hits, the Kraken were very physical tonight, particularly. I was talking about that before with their bottom 6 forwards, especially that line that has Yanni Gord on it. They love to throw the body. The Kraken blocked more shots than the Hurricanes, but that's to be expected considering the Hurricanes are volume shooters that hold the offensive zone for a long time. And that's really about it from this particular game. I will go through the comments here, and then that is going to be it for me tonight. I'm going to relax. BTS says, if I wasn't at a friend's house, I'd be knocked out right now. Yeah, I'm about to be knocked out regardless of where I am. I'm going to go over there and pet my dog, and then I'm going to bed. Coconut Kyle says, it's surprising it's that bad when you consider how high RBA career face-off win percentage was. It's a skill I thought you could coach somewhat. It is. Part of the difference is now, though, and I remember when I made Sebastian Aho a modern Rod Brindamore, and I was looking at the footage of Brindamore taking face-offs versus Aho taking them now. Everyone tries to win them clean now because of how much they do set plays in offensive zone faceoffs and how they do sophisticated breakout plays, I think was how I worded it. So getting possession cleanly is now more important than ever. And not to mention, you used to be able to get away with all kinds of shit in the faceoff circle. Like, go back and look at a game like, hell, even like shortly after the lockout, some of the stuff they're letting guys get away with in the circle. None of that flies now. Now, it's kind of annoying because they take forever to drop the puck in a lot of situations. It's really fucking aggravating, and people are going to try and jump the face off. Doesn't matter what you do. If they can get a molecule ahead of the drop, they're going to do it. That's why the less hesitation they have, if they just drop the damn puck, it wouldn't be a problem. I won't say it wouldn't be a problem. It would be mitigated, I should say. But yeah, it is definitely something you could teach, because the reason Aho got good at faceoffs was because of Brindamore, and he's already started working with Felix Ungerstorm on that, as we saw in camp. PG, what's up, dude? Had to jump on and say, what's up, bro? Big win. Yes, very big win. I'm really impressed with this team right now, and the free agency acquisitions we had, particularly, Carrier and Robinson. Like, I figured they would be decent fits, but I was afraid in particularly that Eric Robinson was going to be redundant. No, he's actually a pretty big net positive, even if he's not scoring a bunch. So I'm perfectly happy with everything right now. Not to mention, I'd like to think that this team, since they didn't put Jesper Fast on LTIR because they wanted to accrue cap space, they're banking all that for something big, and I'm hoping it's someone that they know will be a long-term fit this time. I know they traded for Gensel with the intention of keeping him. I'm hoping that whoever they trade for this time, they just try and do a sign and trade. But I think that they're going to try and do something, because they can go ahead and, they can offer up draft picks now if they can get somebody for just picks and maybe one of the prospects, because the prospect pool is so loaded. I don't really think we need all the picks we have, but that's something you'll have to ask Eric Tulsky about. Travis C, what's up, dude? What's up, boys? Fighting to stay awake. Big W. Yeah, I ain't going to be fighting it much longer. I can tell you that. Coconut Kyle says Blake was excellent. Yes, that kid has not had a bad game yet. It's like every single game and I'm not just talking about the fact that he's putting up, has an assist and has 2 goals now for a total of 3 points. Every single game, it seems like the little fundamental things he's doing, he gets a little bit better. The puck pursuit gets a little bit better. The forechecking gets a little bit better, and he's incredibly competitive. He's got a really good foundation to fit into this system, but I legitimately think this kid, he's going to be here for a long time. BG says Blake's game is all about confidence. He has the skill set plus skill set, but when his game is at his best is when he knows he is mentally. Watched a lot of indie hockey, lots more to come with 53. Yeah, because that play we saw tonight, I feel like I saw him do that 100 times at North Dakota. It's deceptive. Goes in with all that speed. Suddenly he, slows down. He decelerates. He takes a good look. He makes a good heads-up play. And next thing you know, it's in the back of the net. Whether he's the guy who shoots it or more often than not, he distributes it to somebody else. Coconut Kyle says that BG, that pass for the assist was on the money, and I can't wait to see his ceiling. We're nowhere near his ceiling yet. That's the best part. It's going to be 2-3 years before you actually see what that kid is truly, truly capable of, I think. But man, he's something else. He's good. We've got a really good prospect pool, and he's like not even the one to be the most excited about. That guy is coming, and you already know who I'm talking about. Travis C says, appreciate you staying up late for us. Good night, everyone. Hey, no problem, buddy. No problem at all. And BG, for sure, Coconut Kyle, we have yet to see the ceiling, and I'm hyped to see it in Carolina. Yeah, we've got a pretty solid team on our hands if we're doing this good, and this was supposed to be a down year. And, here's one thing where I know that I have an unpopular opinion, and one day I'm going to make a video about it, and I'm going to go into – you guys see how much detail I go into stuff. Like I did with the whole Gossesbear and Shea thing. And this is actually, people are going to think that I hate Shea by the end of this month, and that's just not true. And I definitely don't hate Pesci. Pesci's one of my top 10 favorite Hurricanes defensemen of all time. But I also know when things have, ran their course and when it's time to move on. And one of the things that was starting to run its course was the Shea and Pesci pairing. It was on the way up in 21-22, 22-23, it hit its peak. 23-24, it was starting to decline. And that was 5-on-5, and that was on the penalty kill. It was starting to go downhill. So there wasn't much else you could really, I don't think you were going to get anything else out of that pair, and it was going to go in a slow decline and then eventually into a deep decline. And when I look at the numbers, I think that over the course of time, like when I start to make that video and prove it, a lot of people were attached to this idea that if we did not keep Pesci and Shea and keep that pair together, that the Carolina Hurricanes would move back to Hartford. I really think that some people believe that in their mind. That there's absolutely no way that we could have went on without Shea and Pesci. Shea and Pesci were a great pair, but all good things must come to an end, and that pair was on its way to not being as good as it was. The Walker and Gossesbear pair, I see a lot of long-term sustainability with that, and that pair gives you two big things if you're looking at it in terms of deployment. One, after penalty kills, you just spent 2 minutes, 4 minutes, however long, in a posture where you were less likely to score. That's a great time to have a bump up shift, and you put your most offensively minded pair out there, which is Gossesbear and Walker. We haven't had a pair like this that can go out there and defend well, but also generate a ton of offense. And two, that's your go-to pair for offensive zone draws. And that leaves the ice for people like Jacob Slavin and Jalen Chatfield where they're most valuable, which is neutral zone and defensive zone draws. Pretty much any face-off on the defensive side of the red line, that's where you want Slavin and Chatfield in particular eating their minutes. That's where you want those guys at because that's where they're the most valuable. Where you want Walker and Gossesbear at is the offensive zone face-offs. They're going to generate a lot of high-danger chances. They're going to have a lot of possession. They're going to put a lot of pucks on net. That's one of the things that we're seeing with this pair. Their shots through percentage is pretty high. So I'm going to call it a night. Thank you guys very much. I will try to do the weekly show tomorrow. It depends on what all I got going on. Landfall Hour and Damage Report will more than likely be written for the Vancouver game and for the game against Boston. I am going to do my best to come down there for... Actually, I will tell you right now. Let me tell you exactly which games that I'm planning on coming down there for. Let's see here. Because I was just talking to my buddy AB about getting down there for a couple next month. So on the 16th and 17th of November, depending on what I got going on, I'm going to try to make it down there for those two games. Because I'm not going to Philadelphia. I might be flying to Columbus instead because it's actually pretty cheap, but I'm going to wait until the last minute to make that decision when we'll be really cheap. Coconut Kyle, one more comment here. Chatty had a couple of great deep plays tonight. Shout out to him. Yes, particularly that one where he prevented that breakaway. Like not a whole lot of people beat Chatfield in foot races. He's got a really explosive first step. He's got a really good stride extension. And above all, his positioning is really, really good. So when there's a loose puck, that's part of the reason he gets there first is one, he's already a little bit ahead because of the positioning. Two, he's got a really good first step. And three, he's really fast. So all those powers combined, help him get to a puck faster than just about anybody. If he's got a first step on you, you're probably not going to beat him. And above all, the biggest asset that Chatfield has is his gap control. It's very aggressive. It's like, for example, with Jacob Slavin, his gap control is more technical. It's more about timing, and he's more about using the stick. Whereas Chatfield, he's more like a freight train. He gets up in your face before you even have a chance to remotely do anything. He's hitting you. He's 2 inches away from you. He's making a stick on puck play. He's got all those things in his toolkit. And if you're the second best shutdown on a defenseman, or the second best shutdown defenseman on a hockey team, and the only guy better than you is Jacob Slavin, you're doing something right. So I'm going to get out of here. Y'all take care. I will hopefully see you tomorrow. And one other thing that I forgot to point out here, Okay, this was the last thing I wanted to talk about. Who the fuck wrote this? 3 stars of the game, Joey Decord, with a goals against average of 3.04 and a 921 save percentage, and what was basically a 3-1 loss as far as he was concerned, because empty netter. Jack Drury gets second star, and Jared McCann gets the first star because he scored Seattle's only goal. That's why I kind of don't like the whole 3 stars thing. That's just me. All right, guys, I will see y'all later. A blind man or AI? That's a good answer. All right, I'll see y'all next time.